Dan Nervo here with a new guitar lesson for you. If you're a beginner and you want to start learning some songs, one of the most useful things you can do is learn just a few basic chords. I'm going to show you 4 basic chords today. These chords show up in a lot of different songs. The first one I'm going to show you is the first one I played, which is this chord. That's an E minor chord, one of the easiest chords to play on the guitar. The E minor chord. Very easy chord. It uses mostly open strings. You're only actually pushing down 2 notes on the guitar when you play this chord. The rest of the strings are going to be open or not fretted. So it's a very easy chord. All you got to do is use 2 fingers, middle finger and ring finger on your left hand, or as we call them, fingers 2 and 3. So we usually go with 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pinky is 4. So we're going to use these 2 middle fingers for this chord. We're going to put the second finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, and the 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. So these fingers are nice and snug right next to each other. And make sure to use the tips of your fingers. So your fingers, you don't want to flatten your fingers like this. You want to keep them on the fingertips, and that's so you get a clear note, and that this finger isn't accidentally or unknowingly hanging over this string, the G string, because then you're going to end up muting strings, and you're not going to be happy. So what you want to do, again, 2nd finger, 3rd finger, 2nd fret of the A string, 2nd fret of the D string, and then you just start on the low E and you strum like that. So why don't we just try a basic strumming pattern with that chord? We're just going to do 4 strums in a row with this chord, and they're all going to be down strums, which means we strum this way, and we're holding the pick like this, and we're strumming down like this. So it's just a very simple pattern, just 4 strums in a row, all downs. And we'll count them like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, you can just repeat that until you get sort of the hang of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Voila. There you have it. That's your first chord. Now let's learn the second chord. Second chord I played at the beginning of the video is what we call the C chord. Now this chord is a little bit different. We're going to be pushing down 3 fingers, and we're only going to be strumming 5 strings. So we're going to start the strum, instead of starting the strum at the lowest string, which is the E string, we're going to start the strum on the A string, which is the 2nd lowest string. And we're going to strum down 5 strings. Now let's learn where to put our fingers. So, like I said before, we got fingers 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the pinky. We're not going to be using the pinky for this one. So we're just going to be using fingers 1, 2, and 3. And the cool thing about this chord is that the number of the fret corresponds with the finger number, right? So we're going to start on the 3rd fret on the A string with our 3rd finger, and then we're going to push down the 2nd fret of the D string with our 2nd finger, and then we're going to push down the 1st fret of the B string with our 1st finger. Again, you want to use the tips of your fingers so you don't interfere with any of the open strings. And then you just push these down. Make sure you're within each fret. You don't want to be on the metal thing, which is also called the fret. You want to be in the space, preferably close to the fret on to your right, but not on it. That'll give you sort of the best sound, the least amount of tension, actually, because it's farthest away from this part of the guitar. But that's a different story. Anyway, so you want to just put your fingers there, use the tips of your fingers, and then you can test the chord by just playing 1 note at a time. Make sure you have a nice clear chord, that every note is clean. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And then we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to do 4 down strums in a row and repeat, just like we did with the E minor chord. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have the C chord. All right, let's move on to the next chord. The next chord is the G chord. And this is another 6-string chord. So we're going to be strumming all 6 strings. We're going to be pushing down 3 fingers this time, but this time we're going to be using this little guy, the pinky. Pinky is the weakest finger, so it kind of takes a little time to train that finger to do what you want it to do. But the cool thing about it is it's kind of a small finger, so sometimes it fits in tight places. If you're doing like chords where you have fingers all stuck together and kind of near each other, the pinky can be an advantage because it can help you put fingers close to each other and not have any of the fingers fall out of the fret. But again, that is a different story as well. So let's go to the G chord. The way we're going to play this chord is we're going to use our 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string, and the 2nd finger is going to go on the 2nd fret of the A string, and then the pinky is going to go on the 3rd fret of the high E string. Again, you want to try and keep these fingers as curled, so that you're using arched at the ends, not flat, so that you can use as much of just the fingertip as possible. And then you're going to test this chord like you did with the others. Sounds pretty good. So that's your G chord. Let's try that with a strumming pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there's our 3rd chord. Now on to the last chord, which is the D chord. So this chord's a little bit different than the rest in that we're only using 4 strings. Now we're starting our strum from this string, which is the D string. And we're just strumming down 4 strings. This chord is a little more crowded looking, just because you're putting all your fingers on basically adjacent strings, right? We're going to be fretting the top 3 strings, or the highest 3 strings: the G string, B string, and the high E. Okay. So we're going to start with our 1st finger. We're going to put that on the 2nd fret of the G string. Then we're going to take our 3rd finger and put that on the 3rd fret of the B string. And then our 2nd finger is going to go on the 2nd fret of the high E. Again, you want to try and keep these fingers as tippy finger as you can. Again, so that means you need to kind of arch. You need to arch this last knuckle so that you can get a sort of a straight-on fingertip approach to fretting these notes. Okay, and then you test it. Make sure that every note is nice and clear. And there's the D chord. So now let's do the strum with that chord. So we're just going to do it the same thing as we did before. 4 down strums in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll do that twice. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there you have it. There's the 4th chord. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put all those chords together into a chord progression. I'm going to start with I'm going to do them in the same order that I did before. So we're going to do the E minor first, then we're going to go to the C, then we're going to go to the G, and then we'll do the D chord. And we're just going to do 4 strums on each and then move to the next chord. So this is going to be something you're going to have to work at, because learning the chords is one thing, but then the next thing you got to do is you got to be able to, once you've learned each chord, then you got to be able to move between the chords, which is called chord shifting or chord changing. And that takes some practice. So I'm going to go slow, and this is going to be something you're going to have to practice. But let's at least just get to the actual chord progression that I want to show you, which is just like I said. We're going to go from the 1st chord to the 2nd chord to the 3rd chord to the 4th chord, 4 strums each, and then we'll repeat the whole thing once. So we're just going to start with E minor, and I'm going to be counting the strums as I go. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the chord progression. And you're probably hearing that and thinking, that sounds like a song I know. Well, probably sounds like a lot of songs you know, because these chords are very, very common. And if you start playing guitar and play for a while, you're going to see these chords not just these chords again and again and again, but actually that chord progression is a very popular, common chord progression that I'm sure you've heard in a lot of songs. So, so learning these chords is very useful. You can play a lot of stuff with just these 4 chords. And if you learn how to use a capo, you can change it into different keys. But that's for a different time. That's for a different lesson. These chords are really useful. You'll be able to play a lot of different songs if you master these chords. So take your time. Make sure you get the chords nice and clean. Work on just doing the down strum. It's a simple strum. Later on, we'll take a look at some more strumming patterns that are a little less basic and involve some up strumming, which we didn't do today. We'll get to that in a later lesson. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. See you next time.